Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Dan and Cat Talk. If you are listening to this, first of all, thank you. Thank you for following us around. If you're a previous listener to one of our earlier podcasts, then you know that big changes have been a-brewing this spring, and those big changes bring with it a brand new podcast for myself, Dan Amrich, and my lovely wife, Katrin Auch. Hi, Kat.
Hi.
So we're back. We had Kat and I talked a couple of months ago about doing our own podcast outside of the sort of community gaming podcast that I was doing before. And the idea sort of came that we realized we have a lot of interesting friends. We have met a lot of very interesting people over the years. And all of them have something in common, which is not only do we have their phone numbers, but they all have a certain passion for a weird geek hobby. Like, we know people...
Or a career.
Or a career, yeah. Like, we know people that do interesting things that geeks would find interesting, that would like, they'd like to get some insight into, we think. We know people who are super fans of specific franchises, and maybe you're not a super fan of that franchise, but hearing somebody who really is explain it and sort of give you the cocktail party details that you need to learn why people feel that way, that's the kind of stuff we wanted to do. Our friends who are really into something, or are experts in their field, or have unusual rarefied knowledge or something like that, we thought, well, why don't we just do a conversational podcast with them? And so that's what we're going to try to do. Not really sure what the schedule will be. I think that we're going to start trying to do this.
Try doing it
twice a month. Yeah,
every other week.
So that's kind of where we are, and we've got our first show here. Obviously, we roped somebody into doing it, and there'll be a game along the way, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then there'll be a little special treat at the end of the show, which we want to make a running thing. But more than anything, thanks for coming back, Kat, because what if you didn't? This whole thing would not work at all.
Well, it just occurred to me that, there's going to be some podcasts where I could actually talk in the beginning because this isn't your show.
Right.
It's our show.
It's our show, but my name is first, for whatever that's worth.
That could change since I know how to make a logo.
That's true, and you can build websites. So if you want to... spread the word about the podcast, we do have, danandcattalk.com. That's our URL. We're on Twitter as @danandcattalk, all spelled out. And if you want to send us feedback here at the show, it's talk@danandcattalk.com.
And it's, we've got some people that we have in mind, but if you have if you have an interesting passion, hobby, or career, and you want to share that with people and want to talk, let us know. If you have friends that you think would make good guests, or if you have questions for the people that we have on, let us know. We'll definitely, even if after we do the interview, we will get back in touch with these people because they are our friends, and God damn it, they need to talk to us.
That's right. So we totally want to hear your feedback, and we're happy to do follow up if we miss stuff. Anything else, Kat?
No, that seems to have covered it.
That's it. So welcome to Dan and Cat Talk. And this week we're talking to Dave Cobb, and we are going to talk about what it's like to build theme park rides and attractions for a living. Like, somebody has to make an amusement park, and that somebody is Dave Cobb. So here we go. Well, we are here this week with David Cobb. Is it Dave or David?
Formerly on the business card, David, but everyone calls me Dave.
All right. And you are the senior
creative director.
Creative director. I was a creative developer. No, wait, that's not it. At Thinkwell Group. Now, Thinkwell looks like it's kind of a small shop for doing what you do, but I can imagine that there's probably nothing but small shops for doing what you do.
Yeah, it's not a huge industry. We're about 30 or 40 full-time employees, and then we staff up and down like a movie studio for various productions. We currently have over 100 people in-house, so we're super busy.
Wow.
It's not a huge industry. It's...
My first question is, how the heck did you get started doing
Yeah,
ride
how does one
design.
find themselves in the position to, hey, I want to start making theme park attractions, dark rides, and in-person experiences? You know, like...
blind stinking luck.
okay.
So this isn't like you went to college and there was a course that's like design, you know.
Oh, I wish I could say it was that easy. There's not. There are now. What's great is there's actually a lot of programs for it. There's a few of them now, and I'm excited to see students coming out of that. But I never had that as a kid. I had fandom, and that's about all, really. But I didn't plan it so much as identify it in my early 20s as an option I didn't know about, and sort of said yes at the right spots. Like any good opportunity, it was part luck and part timing and part being in the right place at the right time and part just going with my heart and saying this feels like something I wanted to do. So I didn't really set out to do it, but when you look back, there's lots of things that I did and loved as a kid and in high school and in college that were like, well, yeah, of course that would fit. But
Right.
But there's nobody in the industry that I think at this point that I know that would have this same path. Like a lot of kids say, how do you get in the industry? I'm like, I don't know. When you find out, will you tell me? Because,
Right.
because,
Well, you got to hang out at the end of Pirates of the Caribbean and just be like, you know, like a really eager kid and go, gee willikers, mister, do you need any help cleaning up the pirates? You know,
right, exactly.
Come on, son. It's like the old Hollywood movie studio thing, you know, like in the 40s, like that kid's got moxie. Let's hire him, you know.
Right. He's going places. But you're not far off. I mean, to be honest, I was a theater nerd in school as a kid, all the way through elementary and grade school and junior high and high school.
Are you no longer a theater nerd? Because that's not my.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't use "was" there.
Yeah,
is a much better moniker. But I thought I wanted to. It's first like what I want to be when I grow up. I thought I was a big movie nut. Of course, who wasn't? I grew up. My first real job was like at 14 or 15 working in a video store, the video boom. This is like 84, 85. So, you know, watching everything and get my hands on, thought I wanted to work in movies, thought I specifically wanted to work in special effects, thought I might want to work in cinematography. That was the part of movie making that sort of appealed to me. And thought I might want to work in maybe miniature photography. I had every issue of Cinefex and Starlog and Fangoria and, you know, all that stuff. So, I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I went to school going to focus on that. So I went to when I got out of high school, my first gig was actually working as a tour guide at Universal Studios. I sat on the trams and gave the tours, and which did two things. It was a fun first job. I mean, it was really a blast, and some of my lifelong friends were made there. And then the second thing it did is it gave me access to a lot. I mean, I got to pound the pavement there at production offices. I got to walk the back lot whenever I wanted to. You know, it was really, really fun when you're trying to figure out what you want to do in this big old movie industry. It was like, hey, here's this playground.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, but I went to college for film school. I went to Cal State Northridge, but a couple of things happened. I sort of fell out of love with it, to be honest. I worked on a couple of films in production as a grunt or a gopher. I enjoyed it, but sort of didn't. I ended up working on 2 or 3 films that were these big productions that I worked for a year or 2 or 3 on, and then at the end of the day they were flops and ended up as a box on a video store shelf, you know.
Right.
And so it lost its shimmer a little bit. But the other big thing that happened was there was the big writer's strike, I think in '91.
Yeah.
So I was not getting any production work in between classes, and then Jurassic Park came out, and so CG was this big thing now, and I wasn't studying computers, I was studying filmmaking, and in my head I sort of said to myself, I don't know if miniature photography is necessarily a future for me, you know.
Right.
And so that's how it started, but the way it sort of finished was in that in the middle of all of that, I took a trip to Orlando in 1992, 91. No, wait, 93. Excuse me. Hike, and it was I called up some favors because I was, as a VIP guide at Universal in Hollywood, and said, hey, can somebody get me any tours of the park, blah, blah, blah. And so I went down there and I rode Back to the Future. And the pre-story before that was I was a huge Back to the Future nerd, obviously. I toured through Hill Valley every day on the trams. I actually worked on Back to the Future 2 and 3 as a camera assistant for like a couple of days on
cool.
like a freelance gig. It was no big deal, but it was. So here's this thing that all of a sudden Back to the Future is this real thing, this like world I can step into, and my head exploded because it was technology, it was a simulator, it was placemaking, it was architecture, which I also was sort of interested in. It was a movie I loved, and so I came back just buzzing, and I asked the guy who had set up, it was this executive at Universal, I said, oh my God, what is that ride? Like, who did that? And he set me up with, oh, you need to meet so-and-so at Universal Planning and Development, P&D as they called it. Now it's called Universal Creative, but it's basically Universal's Imagineering department. And I had lunch with this guy, and I was this, hyperkinetic, babbling 23-year-old Back to the Future nerd who I just kept talking. and I guess I either scared or impressed him, because when I got home from lunch, I had a phone call saying, hey, we have this project coordinator position for the Back to the Future ride that's being built here in Hollywood. Would you like it? And and that was when my again, timing, and my heart went, I guess this is a sign. Let me try this. I have no idea what this industry is, but it sure looks fascinating. Yeah. And it was a, entry-level position. It was a project. It was a grunt. It was a gopher. But I ended up working on a major attraction for a theme park from soup to nuts, from groundbreaking to opening day, and seeing how that happens. And it really lit a fire in me. And I said, I'm loving this. How do I do more of this?
Well, we originally met because I came to interview you for GamePro magazine. Universal had pitched GamePro and said, we've got this new ride that's also a game. And so we thought like maybe the game angle would be interesting to you guys, and it's Men in Black Alien Attack, and we want to fly you down to Florida and let you meet the team. And the team was you. Like, yeah. I specifically remember that's like, you're going to meet a meeting with this guy named Dave Cobb. And I was very nervous. And, I didn't know you from Adam, and I was just like, I've never even looked at what goes on inside of a theme park or a dark ride attraction or whatever. But that means, you were kind of the creative lead on that, weren't you? I mean, how did you become the spokesperson if you were not, running the show? Because that was only in, 98, 99. I mean, that was not too much later. What did you do between Back to the Future and the Men in Black attraction?
So Back to the Future finished, and I had this speed wrap of an education on building a major attraction, and found it
just real quick before you go on. How long did it take? You said you took it from groundbreaking to final. How long does it take to make one of those?
Well, that one
specifically.
That one specifically had an advantage in that it had already been built once, so they sort of had already made some mistakes, and they knew what they needed to fix, and et cetera, et cetera. But creatively, it had been figured out. I wasn't really involved in that one creatively. A little bit, in dressing the little holding rooms to look like filled with Doc Brown's props and handwritten notes and stuff. I would help out with that.
Right.
Me and my friend Dave DeVos, who was also a coordinator at the time with me, he sort of recut the because it was a little different in terms of pacing and timing than what was in Florida, and the building looked different, so we re-rendered this sort of CG fly around for the security camera views and things in the queue. So we did actually help out a little bit with the story in terms of putting in a new place, which was fun and very exciting. But I would say from the moment they decided to build something there, in other words, knock down the old Battlestar Galactica tram attraction. Remember that?
No, I don't, and I wish I had seen it.
Yeah, Kat's a big classic BSG fan.
Oh, geez. You pulled up to these two Cylons in this tank, and they're like, halt, humans, and they force the tram to drive into what looks like a spaceship, but it's really just a big box. And
wait a minute, I think you just summed up your entire career. Well, we're going to take you into a spaceship, but it's really just a big box. Wait to destroy the magic.
Gun to my head. Gun to my head. Here, go inside. So, quick before anyone looks.
Right.
And actually, the Battlestar Galactica attraction replaced the former landslide attraction with the big falling foam rubber boulders that would roll down to the tram. But yeah, you might remember that one because that was great on rainy days.
I think I've seen video of that one. And you have to understand that I did not go to any amusement parks or big amusement parks as a child. It just was not my family set. The first time I'd ever been to one of those big parks was Disney World on my honeymoon. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You guys honeymooned at Disney World?
We honeymooned at Disney World. Well, I proposed at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey.
Oh, that was the first theme park I ever went to.
Really?
Yeah, wait, did we talk about this? I'm from Red Bank originally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm from Trenton. So that's the only game in town, really. If you're looking for something fun to do in New Jersey, you go to Great Adventure. And
when I was a kid, my dad, I think, knew one of the architects or engineers of the place or something. So we sort of went pre-opening. I remember I was very young, and I remember they took us on the animal safari.
Yep.
And our car had one of those Landau tops that was like the fake convertible top. It was like the vinyl glued to the roof. Do you remember those?
Yes.
And the monkeys jumped on it and started ripping it up because they wanted to eat the glue on the back of the vinyl. And I was like 3 or 4 years old, like clapping my hands and giggling in the back.
This is the best.
Destroyed. Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. My first theme park memory was a Great American.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions anyway, so we just got that out of the way.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but you were saying that so they rehabbed part of Universal to make room for
yes.
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
So that would probably take, from the moment they decided, that would probably take, I think that took about 2.5 years, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
I think they broke ground. They cleared the site sometime in sort of mid '91, and then we opened in, I believe, April or May of 2000, or April or May of '93. Excuse me, Internet nerds, you can fact check me on that. But right. I think it was April of '93, I believe. But it really depends. I mean, some attractions take longer, some take shorter. It's all about scope and scale, and some development. I've been on attractions that develop for 7-8 years that just never get anywhere. So as far as like when it breaks ground and opens, there's usually about a 2 or 3 year, because then you're burning cash, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So then it's a 2 or 3 year thing. You want to get it open, but it really, as far as overall development, they're all a little bit different because they're all kind of prototypical. Some of them have similar hardware constraints or theatrical constraints, but a lot of them tend to be very, very prototypical.
Like, we've never done this before. Let's see if this works.
Right. We have no idea if this will work at all. Go.
So, I mean, that's a good thing. Like, how do you you've worked on a lot of licensed properties, in addition to Back to the Future and Men in Black Alien Attack, which is the one that you walked me through. And I got to tell you, like, I still have strong memories of you guys flipping on the lights and saying, all right, we're going to walk the track and we're going to describe the experience before you actually run it. And then you let me, as part of the story, I got to play it alone. Talk about like childhood dreams. Like, they turned on the amusement park for me. But you have also worked on Terminator 2. You were on the T2 3D attraction. You did one of the Jurassic Park attractions, which is kind of ironic hearing you say that was when you realized, hey, wait a minute, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. And you were involved in some way in Star Trek The Experience, which was the Hilton Las Vegas thing that Kat and I really loved. That was one of our favorite attractions. But in all of those cases, you're doing a lot of licensed work.
Right.
So now not only are you committing to a movie-style production run of a 2 or 3 year production commitment, but you've also got to make sure that the people that own that license are getting something that they have never seen before, but they'll love. Like, what is the pitching process when you go in and say, here's what we want to do, and it's going to take 3 years, and God, we hope that people are still into Terminator or Men in Black, or, how do you approach a pitch?
Right.
And how do you know that what you're pitching is going to be of interest to them in 3 years?
Right. Licensed properties are half getting them excited and half promising them that you're not going to screw it up.
Right.
Yeah, I would think so.
And because of that, it's in a lot of ways it's there's a lot of talk about, everybody bashes sequels lately, and everybody says, sequels are the dearth of Hollywood. And I'm like, well, they're kind of my lifeblood, to be honest. And living in a brand world enough to understand how it can be expanded outside the four walls of that first movie is kind of what we do all the time. So I'm a little less critical of sequels in general, in principle, and look at it from a business opportunity and a creative opportunity for theme parks and attractions as an opportunity to really offer for that brand or those characters to offer their hand out to the audience and say, hey, come with us, we got more stuff to show you. So it really is about getting in there as a fan and trying to get the DNA of those stories in your blood so that you can pay off on guest expectations. Like one of the first things we do when we sit down for any brand is, if you say, all right, Dan, what's your favorite movie that hasn't been turned into a theme park attraction yet?
Ghostbusters.
What are your guest expectations? I want to. What do you have to do in a ghost? If I said to you,
you have to trap a ghost.
If I'm going to take you on a Ghostbusters ride, what are you going to do?
You have to put me in a car that looks like the Ecto-1. You have to make me feel like I'm on the team. You have to make me be along with the characters that I know, even if it's animated or whatever, because there's obviously problems with that franchise in terms of certain members of the franchise being either uninterested or no longer alive. And I want to see Slimer. I want to see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at some point. I want to see the touchstones of the film.
You want to fire a gun and trap
I would love to fire a proton pack, but I don't see that as something that's truly plausible if I'm sitting in a car going through a dark ride.
Don't worry about plausibility.
Okay.
It's just guest expectation.
Guest expectation. So, I want to feel like...
You want to be a Ghostbuster.
I want to be a Ghostbuster. In some way, make me a Ghostbuster and show me some of the things, like, I would love to go into the Sedgwick Hotel. This is still one of my dreams. Kat has been to the location that is the Sedgwick Hotel.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have not.
Have
yeah, you had a photo shoot there about a year and a half ago.
Oh,
and you said you had a model shoot, and you're like, yeah, you're at this hotel. And I'm like... The Sedgwick, So,
I forgot about that.
So completely. Let's say Ghostbusters, just to pull something out.
If you can register the surprise on my face. That
I know.
Said Ghostbusters.
The other one would have been Tron, probably.
Or Driving Miss Daisy. Those would be the two that I really want to get behind the wheel and feel like Jessica Tandy is haranguing me. That's. Yeah, so let's say Ghostbusters as a property ripe for interpretation that I have only actually ever seen a live stage show with rather embarrassing dancing and the occasional parade of the Ecto-1 with the real Ghostbusters going down the parade route in Universal Florida.
Did you ever see the Universal Florida show, the special effects show with the lasers and stuff?
Yes, because the day after I did the interview and the walkthrough with you, Universal was nice enough to give me a pass to go around the park, do whatever I wanted, and I made a beeline for anything that had anything to do with Ghostbusters. So I did get to see the show. The show I saw was some sort of Halloween rock and Ghostbusters review.
That's not right.
Then I did not see the show.
That's not right in a lot of ways.
Ghostbusters had already been turned into Twister by the time you were there. The building that is the Twister attraction now was a multi-million-dollar Ghostbusters attraction that was sort of like a live show meets the ballroom scene in the Haunted Mansion, basically.
Okay.
And we used a lot of really cool Pepper's Ghost, and also used these really high-tech UV lasers that would melt your eyes if you looked into them, and very incredible. Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, you can see video online. It was actually pretty great. And that was made by the same company that I worked for who did T2 and Jurassic Park and Star Trek, Landmark Entertainment. So after I left, so to answer your question about how you deal with IP, I'll back up. When I left Universal, I was sort of done with I was done with Back to the Future. There was a couple of more small projects that they had me do some writing on. That was the other big thing. By the end of Back to the Future, both my project manager realized and I sort of realized, you know what your skill set is? You're a really good writer. So believe it or not, attractions need writers, and people don't. I didn't know that. Most people don't. But they need a script or a treatment at the beginning, just like any theatrical endeavor. And so I ended up writing treatments for a couple of attractions at Universal that never happened. So they kept me around for a little while, but then it's very project-based, mostly this industry. So I ended up leaving, and I sent my writing samples to this company I'd heard about called Landmark Entertainment that used to be North Hollywood. And they actually had done big work for Universal. They did the concept work for Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park in the parks. And Gary Goddard, who started that company, also who still has his own company today, Gary Goddard Enterprises, or Productions, excuse me. He did the old Conan show at Universal, which I was a huge fan of. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but man, back when the tour was just a tiny little tour and a couple of shows and hadn't turned into a full-fledged theme park, they had this Conan live-action show that
You're talking about Conan the Barbarian,
yes,
not
Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian. Oh yeah, not
Conan the O'Brien. No,
Conan the O'Brien. Although that would be pretty cool if he breathed fire and spit lasers out his eyes. That would be awesome. Yeah, they had this big Conan the Barbarian show, and it had the Basil Polidor score, and it had a dragon, and this live guy who starts out as this young, village boy who literally pulls the sword out of the ice and transforms into Conan in front of you. It was kind of amazing. So I went and interviewed with Landmark, and kind of the same thing happened. I nerded out in front of Gary, who was the guy interviewing me, the Gary Goddard, and he said, "Oh, this kid's got moxie,"
right?
And brought me aboard, and I ended up being sort of a junior show writer there. So I would write treatments and things, and so like T2 and Jurassic Park were happening when I was there, as was Star Trek. Oh, you there?
Yeah.
I thought I lost you for a minute. Sorry.
That's all right.
Let's edit that out. So I thought that those were so Jurassic Park and T2 and Star Trek were already underway when I got hired there, and so I didn't really work on the initial creative for them, but I sort of was contributing to it as it went along, and so because those were big brands with an established company, I sort of got a really great education in IP and working with brands and working with original creators. I mean, Gary had meetings with for Terminator 2 had meetings with Cameron. Cameron was creatively part of that attraction. He directed the film.
Right.
So I got to see that up close and see what that collaboration was like real early on in my career, and it was I was real lucky. It was a lot of fun. But I would say brands are there's a lot. I think as far as theme park fans go, there's people right down the middle. Some people are like, oh, I wish we had more, original attractions, and other people are like, no, it's great to step into the stories and movies and characters you love. And I'm on both sides of that. I don't think there's a right answer for that.
Right.
I think. I'm with the Jim Jarmusch quote. What is it that authenticity is important, but originality is non-existent. So, so working with brands, I think, is really great because if it's something people really love, a theme park attraction is not a 2-hour movie. It's not a book you read for weeks on end. A theme park attraction, at best, we have, counting the time they spend in line, maybe a half an hour or an hour with them total.
Right,
if it's a park land, maybe we have 4 or 5 hours total. But even there, it's not contiguous. It's not linear. As far as a storytelling technique, it's not entirely focused. So it's very hard for you to tell a complete story from beginning, middle, and end in a theme park ride. I actually think that's everybody says, oh, Disney rides all have story. Well, but does story mean linear? Does story mean A to B? Does story mean narrative, for that matter?
I would think of it more as immersion, like feeling that you're like if you've done a good job. If I feel like I've actually experienced being in the worlds that I've come for.
Yeah, and it's exactly. I also think it's story in a theme park is using the tools of emotion, basically, and that I owe that to my friend Devin, who sort of came up with that term, and he also and the proof of that is one time we were sitting there talking about Buena Vista Street at Disney California Adventure, which I love, and he's like, so what do you think that the story of Disney California Adventure Buena Vista Street is? And I said, it's Los Angeles 1920s. It's the day Walt shows up to arrive in Los Angeles to start his empire, and he says, no, you're wrong. And I said, what do you mean? He says,
how can it be wrong? It's your experience.
Right. Well, no, but no, we're having a debate, a professional debate about this. He's right in that it's not about one thing. It's about an emotion. It's about optimism, and so the for that, and that can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And so the reason I bring that up is brand has an established set of emotions around it, and you already have not only guest expectation, but you are primed for whatever story we're going to throw at you. So it's easy for us to get people ramped up to speed in a pre-show or in an environment, and then give them that ride experience, even if the ride's only going to be 4 minutes long, which isn't time to do necessarily a news story.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the flip side of that, of the challenge of that, is there's some people who aren't going to know your brand inside and out. So those 4 minutes better be great anyway, you know?
Right. It needs to be spectacle in and of itself, even if they're not like, I got that reference.
Right. Exactly. And so I think brands are a double-edged sword, because you can sort of rest on your laurels, and it becomes a bit of a crutch. But in the right hands, and things like Cars Land or Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Universal, all of those things are great examples of where, wow, brand really gave the designers a leg up and a jumping off point for the guests that not only that does both things, which is meets and exceeds their guest expectations, which is really hard to do.
I just want to go back to what you were saying about emotions, because I completely agree with you on that, especially in something that doesn't maybe have, like, I think people who are huge fans of any given franchise have that sort of emotional thing built up. So when they get there, and they're immersed in it, it's a very, it really hits home in a very solid way. But like I said, the first time I was at any just ride amusement park, and
right.
the was Disneyland on my honeymoon, or Magic Kingdom on our honeymoon, and we walked in, and we ended up getting there like 5 minutes before the park closed, but they let us in, and we're like on Main Street, and I believe I just burst into tears.
That was it. Like, I didn't know. I mean, we were both nerds for this, so I thought, let's go to Disney World, and let's go the second week of September when all the kids are back in school and nobody wants to.
Also because we got married the second.
Well, yeah, it was convenient timing that our honeymoon followed our wedding almost exactly. But I as a kid, I grew up in New Jersey. That was the big family thing. Like, I remember my parents were big Disney nerds, so we went down to. I went to Disney World in October of 1971. I was 6 months old. I have no memories. But
it was just opened too.
Right. Yeah. My parents were really into it, and they had been watching Wonderful World of Disney on TV.
Oh, wow.
And they watched the whole thing, and they were like, we're going. As soon as we can go, we're going.
That's cool.
And then I went back when I was 5 years old, and that, I have very strong memories. When you're 5, that's kind of like the perfect time, as long as the kid can continue to walk throughout the day. But it was the bicentennial, so I met Mickey in an Uncle Sam hat. It was really ridiculous. And then I went back again when we were 13, and then I went on my senior trip, a day trip to Disney World.
So he was an old hand at it.
By the time, because, you get mental maps when you're really excited and you're a kid. You know the layout. So by the time we got down there, it was stunning to me that, we were in our early 20s, and Kat had never been to Disney World, where I felt like some of my most important moments growing up had been, going to Disney World. So we get there, and, she just bawls, and then we have to leave. And I'm like,
but we went to Epcot. Epcot was open late that day because every park had a thing.
Yeah, a staggered thing. So but yeah, I mean, honestly, just since being in LA, we got season passes, and we ran into you randomly at the park one day. That was really funny. Checked in on Foursquare, said, "Oh, Dave Cobb is here," and then we get off the tram, and Dave Cobb is here. Dave Cobb is literally 10 feet in front of me and didn't spot me.
Say my name 3 times, and I'll
exactly
in front of you.
But
my earliest, and I had really early memories of Disneyland too. I mean, I'm from Jersey, but we moved to LA when I was 4 or 5, so I'm really a native Southern Californian mostly. And I have very early memories of Disneyland, being pushed around in a stroller on Main Street, and I imprinted pretty hard on the Haunted Mansion when I was, 8 or 9 years old, and it's funny. I have a story about an early Disney memory that feels like it's the aha moment, oh my God, that's when you decided you wanted to do what you wanted to do, and it's really not, and it's sort of weird in that.
But it's a callback moment.
It's a callback moment for sure.
It's something where it was implanted very deep in your psyche, where later it could be. Yeah.
Exactly, and it was that my dad was a headhunter. He placed people in sort of project management jobs and engineering jobs and stuff, and. So occasionally he'd place people at WDI back in this is late 70s, early 80s, probably 80, 81 maybe. And I remember he picked me up at school and said, "Hey, I've got a meeting to go to real quick before we go home, but don't worry, there's fun stuff for you to see there." And so he went off to his meeting it was at 1501 Flower Street, which the fans will know is Walt Disney Imagineering in Glendale, California. And
I didn't know that.
He went off to his meeting and he pawned me off on some assistant, and she was very kind to walk me around. And I'm like 10, 11 years old, and she took me to see the Epcot model when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Right. Like everybody goes, "Oh my God." And so I imprinted pretty hard on Epcot too. Like there was this great hardcover coffee table book. I don't know if you've ever seen it, of Epcot, that was like the development of it. And I poured through that thing and just absorbed it. But in my head, the people that built these places were engineers, because that was the only person I knew from my dad's experience. And I didn't really see the theatrical part of it. So I go into junior high and high school, and I'm this theater kid, but I never put the two together.
Right.
And yeah, it's just weird. And then like 84, 85 rolls around. I'm like 15, I guess. And Disney has their first annual passes. They never used to have them, and they roll out their annual pass program for the first time. And I save up my money, and my friends can drive now, so I'm going down to Disneyland on the weekends, and then I can drive. So by the time I'm 16 or 17, I'm going down to Disneyland all the time. And I'd ride the Haunted Mansion like over and over and over and over and over again. And I used to have like the Haunted Mansion record. Do you remember that? The chilling, thrilling sounds of the haunted house? That one side was the Haunted Mansion ride through, and the other side was the weird Halloween stories with that creepy voice. "You are a brave adventurer, afraid of nothing." Remember her? She creeped me out.
See, this is something that you guys have that I have no memory of.
Yeah, like look it up on YouTube. I think somebody's digitized the whole album.
I'm sure somebody has
that thing. And the center of the album was pages and pages of like Haunted Mansion photos, and so I actually bought it. I think I bought a CD copy of it by then, because I found it when I had listened to it as a kid, but then I saw it at the park on CD, and so I'm like poring over that little manual, sitting in front of the Haunted Mansion, and like some park sweeper says, "What are you doing?" And it's this old dude, and I tell him I'm looking at, I want to see the inside. And he's like, "You can buy a blueprint of that." And I'm like, "Where? What store?"
Wow.
He's like, "Not here, at Anaheim City Hall, because the base plans of buildings are public record."
Of course. God, it never even occurred to me. Yeah.
Right. Now post 9/11, internet nerds, before you go running off to your local city halls in Anaheim, post 9/11, that's changed. So base plans are now only show the building outline and exits. They don't actually show any details.
Okay.
But you can find nowadays. It's all on the internet. You can find every Disney blueprint you want. I think there's a site, literally, if I remember correctly, called DisneyBlueprints.com. But where somebody scanned them. But back in 85, 86, that wasn't the case, and so I couldn't drive fast enough to Anaheim City Hall, and I plunked down my $15 and got a drawing tube, and in it was a copy of the Haunted Mansion blueprints, like literally showing just the one sheet showing where all the effects were in the track plan. And that, in one form or another, it got damaged once and replaced, but in one form or another has been hanging over my desk since I was 15 years old.
That's awesome.
And yet, to be honest, I didn't decide at that moment this is what I want to do. I just thought it was cool. Like, I didn't really have the aha moment until much later when I got that job on Back to the Future. I went, oh, there's people who actually do this. Right. So it was this soup of influence that had yet to come together. You know what I mean?
I have to say, when I found out, like even the word Imagineers, I'm like, that's what I want to do. And then, of course, I never did. But like, when I heard that job, that you have a job that lets you create things, it's one of those things that I've always kind of been, like really, really interested in. But I always thought, well, I probably don't have the skills that would be required. But one of the things that we did on our honeymoon that was incredibly awesome, and I give huge props to my mom who messengered us more money so we could do this. Once we got to Disney, we found out that there was it was called Through the Looking Glass.
It was called the Backstage Magic Tour.
But it was Through the Looking Glass, the Backstage.
Oh, I guess it was.
Tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remembered that specifically. But they had this intense tour, this whole day tour. So you had to be there for a while, and you had to sign up far enough advance, and luckily we were there long enough that we managed to get on a tour on one of our last days.
Right.
That they took us behind the scenes and showed us, like, we got to see one of the motion rides from
Body Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
Got to see them the like loading, and then in operation they just sort of like let us sneak in the side and look up and see exactly what the
around.
what the cab was
see,
doing.
like, I think we saw the presidents in one of the like we got to see like just behind the rides, and then go into the tunnels and see how the parades work with the triggers in the street for when the music goes off and all of that, and into the costume shops and everything. And it was really interesting. Is our guide was very good, and he said, "I know a lot, but if you ask me a question that I do not know, I will have an answer for you by the end of the tour."
That's awesome.
And
it was
did.
incredible. But he did say, please be sensitive when we go into the fabrication rooms, because a lot of the people that are working here do not approve of this tour. And, they won't treat you badly, but, just don't get in their space and give them theirs, because they don't like the magic being ruined for anyone.
That was specific to the costume shop.
It was specific to the costume and also the heads.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was very, they were like, how many, and he would be like, how many Mickeys are there? There's one Mickey. So, there's only one Mickey.
Right. There is only one Mickey.
But they actually let us walk on the shop floor down the middle of their workroom.
Yeah.
And we were like, they're like, just walk straight through, just get it over with.
Yeah.
Don't interact with anything. Don't talk to anybody. Don't make eye contact. But we felt like we were, in a sacred place. And some of the people looked at us and smiled, and some of the people looked at us and didn't smile. And, meanwhile, somebody's working on like Buzz Lightyear's ass.
That was below the age of 21, I don't think.
18.
I think that it was really like, this is for adults who are really interested in it. This is not, if somebody tried to bring a kid on that ride, oh my God, no.
But it was amazing because we had never gotten to see, we appreciate the external show, but Kat and I have always been the kind of people that really wanted to see, like, there are some people that don't like to see it because it ruins the magic. We're like, we appreciate the human effort that goes into this so much more now that we've been able to see, oh my God, look at everything that happens, So, that was pretty fantastic. I'm looking at the other questions because I don't want to kill all the time that we have with you talking about our Disney memories. Okay, so here's one. You've worked on a lot of different attractions. I have two questions, and the first is, what's been sort of the most influential or important innovation in your world while you've been working in the industry? What is it that has sort of pushed theme parks and live experience attractions and stuff? What's the preferred term? What do you like? Is it do you like, I design dark rides, or is there a euphemism, or is there a very specific term for what it is that you do?
I would say I'm an experience designer.
Okay.
And that gets confusing because nowadays experience gets lumped in with UX, which is online user experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not that. But nowadays we are, it's very informal. Obviously, every company deals with it differently. Here at Thinkwell, we say we're experience designers, and that the industry is the location-based industry. So but the funnier answer is when people hear what I've done, or they come and they meet me having any preconceived notion of what I do, they say, "So I hear you design roller coasters."
Uh-huh.
Oh my!
And I say, "No, I tell stories with roller coasters." Which makes them even more confused because, wait, what?
Yeah, that's not why I go on a roller coaster.
Exactly, right. So, it's a complicated thing to explain, but the bottom line is we tell stories in physical places. So theme parks are a big part of that, but I do a ton of museum work, and I do a ton of event work and temporary pop-up sort of entertainment work. I do a lot of work for consumer brands that want to have a physical brick and mortar location for their brand, like a factory tour or what they call a brand center, as an attraction around something.
Okay.
So it's more than just theme parks. It loosely revolves around everything around the sort of tourism and recreation industry, but it also involves things like education and brand extension and those kind of those worlds as well. So it's halfway between it's a little bit of Imagineering, it's a little bit of location, or a little bit of event marketing,
right,
and a little bit of education and museum development.
Well, then I might get a different answer to this question than I had thought. The other part of my question was, what's the thing that seems to have had the most important impact on what it is that you do? Whether it's is it technology? Is it things like 3D technology being very different now with polarized lenses? Is it a technological thing that pushes your industry forward, or are you finding that it's more of like social and what the customer wants and what kind of experiences they're craving? What drives what you do more, or what are the key factors in your time in the industry that have sort of pushed your projects forward and the things that you've had to sort of make up as you go along?
Absolutely, 100% the latter. I would say technology is always there, but it's just a tool. And the example I give there is everybody's super hyped about the Oculus because of Facebook buying them. I saw VR in the 90s, and it's a little bit better now, but it's still it still has a lot of the same issues, and it's sort of, gamers are going to love it, sure. Is it a thing that everybody at a Disney park or museum wants to strap on their face and have an experience? I don't know. Personally, I don't think so yet, because I don't think it's good enough yet.
But it's affordable, and that's the important part.
Right, it's affordable.
It's no longer $8,000 to get a VPL set up,
Right. But I would say the bigger change look at that as a gaming thing. What's changed between then and now? Not just graphics, just the social aspect of gaming and online and multiplayer. So the gaming always hangs their hat on tech, and all the marketing people for theme parks like to hang their hat on 3D and motion simulation and higher, faster, more loops. But all of that is static. I think the real thing that changes what we do is that people use public spaces differently than they used to.
I have a question I want to ask. I'm sorry, you can finish that thought. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's all right. I think that when you look at the patterns of places like Disneyland, that 30, 40 years ago was a tourist destination that people went to once or twice, and now has a thriving annual pass program and locals within 200 miles that come every weekend, and some of them come every day. And you have things like, you've read those articles about the quote-unquote Disney gangs. Like
yes.
The people, right?
Mm-hmm. The social clubs.
Social clubs. They create a social identity around going to the park. And have you also heard of Disney bounding?
No. What is Disney bounding?
You're going to love this. So I'm in the park So you've heard of the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, right? Which is their little makeover, little kids makeover thing where you get princess and pirate makeovers. Okay, it's a license to print money. It's awesome. It's teaching kids how to cosplay at 4 years old.
Right.
It's fantastic. Now that Disney has sort of sold and resold us our childhoods for decades and told us that it's okay as an adult to be a kid, unfortunately it's still not allowed to wear. You're not allowed to wear costumes in the park as an adult. That's one of their rules.
Except for special days, though I know they are.
Well, no, not even for special days. They sort of look the other way when it's street clothes. But if you were to wear a Chewbacca costume or a full princess costume, you will get kicked out.
See, that's funny because I wanted to take Kat made us wonderful Jedi outfits this year, and I said, let's go to the park on Halloween, and that would not, because it was on brand, it wouldn't have happened?
I'll tell you, it's a gray area, and I can't tell you how they're going to react, but the letter of the law is that adults are not allowed to wear costumes. And where do you draw that line, adult, is my question.
Oh, yeah.
So the proof in the pudding in this is that a couple of years ago, a girl dressed up in Florida as Tinkerbell, a really great Tinkerbell costume, with her boyfriend for his birthday, and she got kicked out of the parks. And there's this very sad, tearful news video of her crying about how long it took her to put her outfit together. And you're like, Disney, I understand your rule, but you've told us this is okay.
Yeah.
You've sold us this as a product.
You're using it as a marketing campaign.
Right. Well, hang on. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
But I understand Disney's side. You don't necessarily want your kids standing next to skeezy Peter Pan. I get it.
Right.
You have to have some accountability. So flashback to like April or May of last year. I'm in line for an attraction at the park at Disneyland, and there's these two girls behind me, and they're sort of 17-ish, and they're dressed very nicely, but they're street clothes, but they're dressed a little too nicely to be in the park. And they're very put together, and I look at them, and one of them is wearing sort of a blue top and a yellow skirt and a little red headband. And I look next to her, and her friend is wearing a purple skirt with a long braid in her hair and a little pin, a brooch on her lapel that looks like a chameleon.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God, you're Rapunzel and your friend is Snow White. And they looked at me and put a finger up to their lips and went, shh. Like it was a secret.
Right.
And
like
I said,
we have to hide that we're super fans in the park that is built for super fans.
And I'm like, oh my God, tell me what you're doing. And they could not pull out their phones fast enough to show me this blog that they discovered called Disney Bounding. And it's on Tumblr. And there used to be one, and now there's like 30. And you've seen how girls on Pinterest, and guys too, on Pinterest and Tumblr and stuff will pull together like a fashion board of what they're wearing to school that day.
Yes.
Like,
sure.
I love these pants and this top. Okay, do that through the lens of a Disney character. So it's at the intersection of street clothes, fashion, and Disney branding. So they're coming to the parks, and this reason it's called Disney Bounding is because you text your friends and it's like you're bound for Disney. So
okay.
I'm going to the park, and I'm gonna go as, I saw a girl as Smee once. That was the cutest thing ever, with a little floppy little hat and a striped T-shirt. Like just look up #DisneyBound on the internet, and your minds will be blown.
I'm really impressed. I'm looking at some of it now, and it's pretty subtle.
And it's subtle, but it's street clothes, but it allows them to mash up their beloved character identity with being in the park, and so. I saw this and my head exploded, and it was basically user-created content in a theme park.
That's great.
And so I went down this rabbit hole of finding out all the influences about it, and then started to find out about the social clubs, which are kind of the same thing in a lot of ways. And if Disney were to ever own Disney Bounding and use it and sell to it, it would fail, because the kids would drop it like a hot potato.
Right. They'd be like, oh, don't you dare. Right.
Right. But look at their latest campaign, #DisneySide.
Yeah,
they are co-opting that. They are absolutely co-opting that.
Huh.
And all of that came after Disney. All of the Disney side branding came after Disney Bounding. So these kids are going to use a space the way they want to use it.
Yeah.
And operators of parks and museums, for that matter, need to sort of adapt to that. And so to me, when you ask the questions, what's more influential? Well, the audience isn't more influential. They always have been.
Sure.
And so the key is to look at what they really want and how they want to use your space, and see if there's a way that you can play to those strengths and meet them on their turf and not necessarily dictate everything they do.
Right.
That's awesome. I have one last question.
Yeah.
What ride do you wish you had been on the team for?
Oh, God.
I'm thinking the Tron ARG.
Well, no, that's an easy one. They're building a Tron coaster, right?
I did not know this.
They're building.
Can I get in line now?
It's called Tron Light Cycles Power Run, I believe.
Where is it?
And it's at Disneyland Shanghai. It's at the new park in China.
Let's go to China, Cat.
I have friends working on it, and I've seen a couple of pieces of concept art, and every time I hear about it, I just I see I want to be on that. So it's a from what I know from rumors, it's some sort of indoor launched. It sort of replaces Space Mountain. It's basically indoor launched dual light cycle race.
That seems like heresy, replacing Space Mountain.
Well, but they don't know what Space Mountain is there.
No, I understand. Yeah,
the cultural references in that park are very different than, and that's the thing. I've seen a lot of designs of that, and I'm very, very curious to see the American reaction, because fans may be up in arms about some of the big changes that they've made functionally and philosophically to what a Disney park is. And my answer to them would be, it's not for you, right?
Sure.
It's not. The historical references, the cultural references for that audience are not the same, and they didn't want to steamroll in with Main Street USA like that. Nobody's going to get it. What is Tomorrowland? What does the future mean? It's not about space travel. What is Frontierland? I mean, there are certain things that they can romanticize, pirates and stuff like that are sort of. There's a lot of differences with that park in what it means and its philosophies and lands. I think if you do some digging, you'll find some more stuff on it.
All right. So, with that in mind, would you like to play a game?
Yes, sir. I would love to play a game.
You say that now, but the game is You Must Choose.
You must choose.
Okay, so here's how it works. I've got a list of things. It's a long list of things, of 1 or 2. That's it. And you just have to tell me as fast as you can what your preference is. You choose. Kat's going to time us for 30 seconds.
Okay, I will time you for 30 seconds.
And
think of it like the eye doctor's appointment where it's A or B. This is pretty much.
Yeah. Better or worse? Better or worse?
Worse.
Got it.
Except fast. So we'll go when Kat says go, and you just tell me which of these things you like better.
Okay.
Okay, I'm getting ready, and it's just going to be a couple more seconds, so I'm setting the top of the thing. You ready?
Yes.
And go.
Pirates or ninjas?
Pirates.
French fries or onion rings?
Fries.
Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Kirk or Picard?
Picard.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Italian or French?
Italian.
Physical media or digital download?
Digital download.
Ricardo Montalban or Benedict Cumberbatch?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Weird Al with a mustache and glasses or Weird Al without a mustache and glasses?
Oh, with the mustache and glasses.
Jackson 5 or Osmonds?
Jackson 5.
Turn off the... Oh, and your last one? Dan or Kat? You must choose!
Dan!
Yes! 1 point for me.
Only because I know you longer.
I know. I got the inside track on that one. Wow, we have like 100 more of those. I kind of just want to do a whole show of that with you.
Oh,
by the way, you got all the answers right, if that makes you feel better.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Kat, did he get all the answers right? I think he did.
Except for the last one, yes.
Oh, okay, good.
I love you too, Kat.
That's okay.
Well, cool. I want to give you the chance to plug who you are, where you are. Should people look for you on social media, your job, your personal life? Where do you want to send people?
The easiest way is go to about.me/Dave Cobb, DAVECOBB. That's got all of my internets.
Okay.
Twitter, Instagram, portfolio link to Thinkwell. Thinkwellgroup.com is the company I work for. But you can find all of my internets, varied internet intertubes, at about.me/Dave Cobb.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dave. Please do come back, because we have other topics that we want to talk to you about.
I love this stuff. Anytime. I would love to do this again. Please let me know.
They really aren't. Thanks very much, Mr. Cobb.
Bartender, pour me another short circuit.
Sure thing. Hey, you look familiar. You're one of those IT jockeys.
Well, something like that. See, I'm Chance Fortran, tech therapist. Yes, Chance Fortran, tech therapist. As the future's premier interstellar IT specialist, Chance travels the galaxy, repairing the rifts between users and the technology on which they depend. Today, we find Chance relaxing at his favorite watering hole and tech club, the Blue Screen of Death.
Tech therapist, huh? Don't know if I haven't met one of those before. Sounds mighty fancy.
Nothing fancy about it. Just good old hard work and mutual understanding. You see, the life of a tech therapist is...
Whoa. Slow down. That's way too technical for me. Besides, there's a lovely lady over there checking you out.
Really? Really? Oh, yes. Well, I should definitely go over there and say hi, then. Well, hello there. I couldn't help but notice that you're all on your own. Mind if I keep you company?
Not at all. My friend met a guy and left me all alone. I'm Sarah.
Well, that's not very friendly behavior, Sarah. I mean, I'd never treat anyone as charming as you like that.
You're so considerate. I bet you're smart, too.
Well, not to brag, but I did graduate top of my class at Saturn Polytech.
Wow. You must be very important. What do you do?
I'm a tech therapist.
A what?
A tech therapist.
I've never heard of that before. So do you fix computers?
Well, actually, I help people resolve conflicts with their technology through dialogue and mutual understanding and insight.
Oh.
Well, you see...
Is this guy boring you? Come talk to me. I've saved a planet.
Really?
Crash Blightmaker. I should have known.
Yes, Chance. Always glad to rescue pretty ladies from your tedious tall tales.
If anyone here exaggerates, it's you. Saved a planet.
You're just jealous. I saved Janice from that rogue terraforming bulldozer.
What?
You heard me.
Okay, first, Janus isn't even a planet, it's a moon, and it's a pretty minor one at that.
Tomato, tomato.
Second, all you did was flip the switch on the terraforming bulldozer from evil to normal.
Yeah, but I did it.
But third, you were the one who installed the evil switch to begin with.
I thought it would be hilarious if it ever got switched on. And I was right.
But you can't claim to save a planet that you caused to be in danger.
Ah! I win. You just called it a planet.
Oh, you are such a child. Come on, Sarah. Let's go somewhere private. Sarah. Oh, where did she go? Join us next time for another episode of Chance Fortran, Tech Therapist. So, can I buy a drink?
Sure, why not?